This morning, we're looking at how you can turn a gap in your resume into an advantage in your career. It's part of our series with LinkedIn called Work in Progress. Re-entering the job market after taking months off or even years off to care for a parent or raise a family can be very stressful. But a recent study shows companies are now okay with interviewing job seekers who've been out of the workforce for as long as 2 years. That marks a shift in attitudes toward work gaps. LinkedIn senior editor-at-large Jessie Hempel is here. Jessie, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
Why is this? Why are employers' attitudes changing?
Well, there are two reasons, and the first is the obvious. Unemployment is historically low.
Yeah.
Recruiters need job candidates. But the second's more interesting, and it's that culture is changing. Essentially, I mean, when my parents were looking for jobs, you were expected to leave work at work and home at home.
Yeah.
But in 2019, you blend the two. And in fact, employers are much more supportive of their employees and, in fact, their job candidates prioritizing life outside of work.
So how do you turn this gap in your resume into an advantage?
That is the question. And it's a question that people have been talking about on LinkedIn. And one woman had a great piece of advice. She said, you need a plan. You need to go into that job interview with a story. And when I say story, I don't mean a confessional. That's not what a job interview is.
Yeah.
Just be able to explain it concisely.
Yeah.
But bullet point number one there, don't hide it.
Yeah, but it certainly used to be a negative because what if you just said, I don't really want to talk about it, it's a personal matter for me. Are you expected to share with your employer to be what happened?
That's an awkward question for people who maybe aren't as comfortable sharing personal information.
Yes.
And yet it is expected.
You have
and
to
again,
be expected to share, though.
You don't need to overshare.
Yes.
And this is a problem, particularly for older people, often for women. Like, you don't need to be too honest.
Right.
You just need to explain why this fits into the pattern of your career.
Yeah.
Is this change happening in part because millennials are now aging into positions of power? They're the ones making these hiring decisions, and they may have taken years off to go travel when they were in their 20s?
And what that speaks to is why people take time off in the first place, right? And most of the people on LinkedIn were still taking it off for very traditional reasons. They had children to take care of at home, an aging parent. It's men and women, by the way, who take time off for caregiving. But, Tony, what you speak to is this next wave. That is people coming into the workforce and saying, you know, I'm going to take a year off and travel. Or I'm going to take a year off and take this coding boot camp so I'm better prepared for the future. And those are proactive reasons to step out of the workforce.
So somebody, like an employer, might look at that and say, oh, that's a curious person, you were saying.
Yeah, that person has, that person really is thinking about the future. That is a proactive person for my organization.
That's a modern interpretation. You get a year off to go wander around in an old-fashioned...
Yeah, in my family, that means flaking off.
Yeah, that's an indulgent person.
Do you think companies are becoming more flexible and open to allowing people who've had time off, who have taken time off to re-enter the workforce without judgment?
Absolutely, within reason, though.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try to tell you that this is an easy thing. And in fact, the people talking about it on LinkedIn didn't all have great stories to recount about how it all worked out.
What
right?
are they saying?
Yeah.
They're saying essentially that they go back in with a plan. Some people, one man said he had been out of work for 15 months. He was just going back to work. He said one of the most important things for him was actually to connect with other people, professional networks, while he was out of work, to keep those relationships warm, because we all know that our professional networks are often how we get our next jobs.
Yeah, and if your gap is tied to caring for a new baby, for example, men and women now doing that as well. You know, it says about 1 in 5 U.S. parents, most are women, are stay-at-home parents. So if you're looking to re-enter the workplace after that, you can keep the networking bug alive even if you have the baby strapped to your chest, you know, a little Bluetooth.
As you know how to do that.
Yeah.
Who's more likely to have the gap in their resume, men or women?
Well, I mean, this is not a surprise. Women
Because of
overwhelmingly
babies?
continue
Yes.
to be the people who step out, not just because of babies, because of spouses, because of parents. It's shifting, but it's not shifting as fast as I would like to see it shift.
But you're saying because a lot of people, when they go back into the workforce, they're actually kind of afraid of the way they're going to be seen.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't be.
Well, it's not that they shouldn't be. It's that they should strategically get ahead of it, right?
Yeah.
You need to do the things that are going to best set you up for success. And you need to understand it's possible. And that alone is a change. It wasn't possible in the same way 2 decades ago.
You just said something, women taking time off because of babies, spouses. What do you mean spouses? Why are they taking
Well,
time
let's
off for their
say you have an
spouses?
illness in your family. God forbid your spouse is diagnosed with
Oh, I got
cancer
it.
and you need
Okay.
to take a few months out.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I was confused for a second. Thank you, Jessie Hempel. Thank you very much.